And we are live. Welcome to Sun News Live with Moni Jones. And you guessed it, I'm your host, Moni Jones. And today we have a I'm talking like I'm announcing a sport event. Lord, let me tone it down a little bit. Hey everybody, welcome to Sun News Live. This is Moni Jones and I'm your host, Moni Jones. And we have a very special guest today, the internationally renowned singer and Sun columnist, Kharisma McIlwain. We're going to be talking about her new single and her musical legacy because she's actually a third generation musician who has sung background for some of the greatest talents and musicians in the world, including Mariah Carey. Kharisma, thank you for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Sun family. Yay.
You know, I am a fan of yours pre the single coming out.
Oh, thank
I'm just
you.
a fan. You know, you're like Minnie Riperton to me. You give me that Minnie Riperton vibe. I'm like, man, Kharisma got it going on.
Such a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You are so welcome. Okay, so All In, your new single that is dropping on June 11th.
Yes.
Is this your first single?
Yes and no. So many moons ago, I had a single called I Think I'm Ready. But I never really like officially did like a drop. So this is like my first official like single drop. Because it was like I did some press and I performed it live back when they would do the performances down at Penn's Landing, but it wasn't like an official release where it was available like on iTunes and you know all the different streaming platforms. So this is officially my first single release.
Officially your first single. Okay, so let's talk about your musical background because you are a third generation musician and your family has a pretty prestigious background in music. Would you like to share with us your musical background? Take as much time as you need.
Well, yeah, I'm probably gonna need a lot of time because it's just such a long story. But basically, I'm a third generation musician on both sides. So I grew up surrounded by music. My mother's father was a tenor jazz saxophone player by the name of Lee Smith. He had a band called the Highlarks, and I grew up singing with him. My uncle Lloyd was the lead guitar player for the Barkays. He was in my grandfather's band. My other uncle Chubby played with Sister Sledge and the Jackson 5 and Billy Preston and worked with Stevie Wonder at one point. He was in the band, and my dad is a singer. He was in the band. He used to be in a group called Chill Factor, and they performed at the Uptown Theater. And then my dad's father is also a singer. He was a gospel singer and one of the founders of the gospel group, the Southern Wonders. So I literally just grew up surrounded by music. There was always a jam session going on at Pop-Op's house. Like on any given day, I could walk in and see anybody from the sound of Philadelphia in my grandparents' living room because a lot of those guys like Norman Harris and Ronnie Baker were also in my grandfather's band, Frank Austin, Lamb Chops, Bruce Halls, who just passed. And like my brother, there's a picture of him with Evelyn Champagne King, like sitting at my grandparents' piano. Like,
wow,
really, we could just walk in and see anyone at any given point. And like as a kid, you don't really fully grasp like the greats that you're surrounded by until you get older. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's like Uncle such and such, you know? And kind of the same thing happened because Rick James adopted me as his niece.
Okay.
And my Uncle Lloyd were on tour together. And it wasn't until I got old enough to be like, oh, you're not my mom's kid or Pop-Pop's kid. Oh, so you're like that kind of uncle. Like I never knew. Like he was just Uncle Rick. He called me and like fuss at me when I was acting up or whatever. He was just Uncle Rick. And then whenever he would do shows on the East Coast, we would always go see him. So literally just surrounded by music all the time. And it was just fun. And there's pictures of me in diapers at the computer. And there's pictures of me singing into a rattle. My grandparents' yard.
That's so interesting. So what is it like when you have an uncle like Rick James and he scolds you for not behaving properly? What does that conversation go like? What does he say? Does he raise his voice? Is he calm? Is he saying no gifts for Christmas? What is he doing?
It's so funny because like his stage persona, I'll never forget the first time I saw him perform on stage. It blew me away because his stage persona was so different than our normal interactions. Like our normal interactions, we would just talk like we're talking now. And he was very calm and everything was like, he was so wise. Like, so he always had like a lesson to offer. And then you see him on stage and he's electric. So it was funny because like whenever my parents, mostly in high school, he would call and be like, Kharisma, listen to your parents. Whatever they tell you to do, you do it. And I'm just like, okay. but he never really like yelled at me. It was just more like a stern tone, and then we go right back to like joking and laughing and talking. But it was always funny. And the funniest moment, the funniest memory thinking back, he was performing in Maryland, and we got there late. Of course, we were driving from Philly. We got there late. He had new security backstage, and the new security didn't know who we were. So we came up and we're like trying to get backstage where he told us to come. He comes off the stage during his performance because he hears the commotion, like lays out his security person, like all of the words. And he never cursed around me. So this was like the first time I ever heard him use like a bad word. And then like went right back on stage. And before he went back on, he was like, "Are y'all coming?" And I'm like, "Yes." Just like, like that was him. He was just this ball of energy, loved performing, loved his fans. And then off stage, he was just like cool, calm, and collected, and always had like a wealth of wisdom to share.
You know what's so interesting about your career, Kharisma? I see parallels between you and Whitney Houston, because Whitney Houston also grew up with a lot of legends around her.
Yeah.
And I don't think she really could appreciate that until she got older. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Dionne Warwick's my cousin. That's a big deal.
Right. Like Sissy Houston is my mother. That's a big deal.
My God, like, that's a big deal. So you guys, and it's funny because it shows in your talent level and your voice that you grew up around the greats. You can really hear it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Whitney, of course, was one of my other influences. And I remember one of the hardest jobs I ever had to do, a friend of mine called me randomly and was like, "Hey," this was right after Whitney passed, "I'm doing coverage of the Whitney Houston Going Home service. Do you want to produce it?" And I was just like, what? And I felt honored because she influenced me so much in terms of music. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm a wreck. Like, how am I going to do this and pay homage to this woman that I loved, that I never got a chance to meet, and pull this off? But I ended up, just putting on my sunglasses and crying through it. But it was my first ever live production ever. And it was national. And it was through BET. It was nice.
Yeah. Were you there at the service?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. That's why it was rough, because I'm like, I have an earpiece in, and like all this information is constantly changing. Like, Bobby Brown's on the way. No, he's not. Aretha Franklin's coming. I think she's entering the church. Like, all this information is constantly changing. And I wasn't the on-camera person this day. I was just producing. So I'm trying to filter that information to the person that was on camera and like hold it together at the same time, because we're watching the broadcast and I'm literally just like trying not to boohoo cry behind shades. And it was like a 15 or 16 hour day. It was nuts, but I was just like, that felt like a really awesome way for me to like pay homage and tribute someone that, meant a lot to me and still does.
Absolutely. Now, you're also a Jill of all trades. You are a multimedia personality. We've seen you on television hosting news and doing reporting. But as far as your singing, you've also performed around the world. Tell us some places that you've performed at around the globe.
Well, my biggest memory of performing internationally, and I hope that there are more of these opportunities, was in Morocco. There was a festival for children that I was asked to perform at, and I actually performed with my dad, which was amazing. And the way that it all came together was so organic. My brother's an artist. We do a lot of traveling internationally together. Whenever he travels, I'm like, yay, I'm going to be an awesome little sister and like videotape you. And then I get to go on these awesome trips. So it's like win-win. So he was painting in France, actually. And a guy came up and kind of just sat outside and spoke with us for like, 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, he was originally from Morocco. And about a year later, he contacted me and said, hey, I'm doing this festival for children. It's a film festival in Morocco. They need live performances. And, we would love to have you. I sent them some of your stuff. They love you. They would love for you to come over and perform. They want your brother to come do some artwork while he's there as well. And you guys can bring 2 people. So we ended up bringing my parents. So I got to perform with my dad in Morocco at this festival. My brother painted a mural of me there and my mom was there. So it was like our family got to do this awesome international trip and I got to perform. It was great.
And any other places you performed around the world?
Not internationally. Like that was the big international place that I performed, but all over the States I performed at places like Blues Alley, which is, you know, a legendary jazz location. I opened for Eric Roberson, Deborah Cox, Kenny Lattimore, sang background for Mariah Carey, sang background for Pink. So it's been some cool experiences stateside as well.
Okay, so let's talk about Mariah Carey, because you know she's the vocalist of vocalists. What is it like auditioning to be a background singer for Mariah Carey?
So funny story, I didn't have to audition. So like most of my life in my career, I just got a call. Like I feel like that's been a thread through everything that I do. I get random calls from people that I've met over the years, and it's like, hey, can you do this? And I freak out, and then I'm like, okay. So this was one of those things. She was performing at the Wachovia Center, and they needed a choir to back her up. And my cousin was actually doing some work with her team and was like, hey, I have this awesome opportunity for you. You have like less than a day to learn this song, but do you want to do it? And I was like, send me the song right now. Absolutely.
Right.
And I showed up like early and I was like, let's do it. And yeah, so then I had that awesome chance to come back.
You probably canceled a lot of stuff last minute to take that.
Yes, I can't. I'm not available indefinitely, because if she asked me to go on tour with her, like, I'm out.
Send us the columns on the road, man. We need your Sun Spotlight column. So your single All In.
Yes.
What is your songwriting process? What inspires your songs? Is it your real life love story?
I mean,
I'm the muse for your music career.
I plead the fifth. But usually, as it pertains to music, I'm just inspired by like everyday life stuff. And in this particular instance, I actually started working on the song All In last summer. And my plan was to release this EP project that I have that's upcoming last year. And then COVID hit and everything shut down. So for a while, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm stuck at home. Like, I have this extra time. Like, maybe I can use it to channel, you know, into some of my creativity and, you know, start really getting into writing, because I couldn't go to the studio like I normally would. So what I ended up doing was I called a bunch of my friends that are like, you know, really heavy into recording. And I'm like, hey guys, like I need to figure out at home studio setup. I don't need anything complicated. I just need enough equipment to get the job done. And so I bought some equipment. I bought a new computer. I bought a microphone and recorded this particular song at home. And what inspired it was, at the time it was summer, and you know, everybody was talking about weekends and like how, you know, a lot of us look forward to the weekend as like our time to do the stuff that we actually enjoy doing because we're working so hard during the week. And I'm like, that for whatever reason just inspired me. It was like, oh, and so one of the lines in the hook is, you make every day feel like the weekend. Okay. So it kind of inspired this whole ode to what it feels like when it's new love and spring and summer and everything just makes you happy. And you're like, okay, I want to give it a shot. Because, you know, we've all been there where we're in a situation with love and it doesn't quite work out. And then we're a little bit tender and we kind of are guarded moving forward. But it's like in this particular song, it's like, you make me want to just, you know, like, all right, let's give it a shot. So
you know, I can really tell that you're a writer, because most people would say, when you get in a relationship or something happens that you're hurt, but you just said you're tender, and that's a good word. You're vulnerable. People don't like to use the word tender because it makes them feel a little bit weak or vulnerable, like they don't want to say the extent to which the relationship has hurt them. But right. I like the word tender because that's right. Yeah.
You know, you get hurt in the area where you get hurt. It's tender. It's sore. Tender. Like, you know, all of us have been there where it's like, okay, how do I get into this space where I'm open and like, you know, willing to even give it a shot again.
Absolutely.
So kind of where
now I know you're not going to share with us, you're pleading the fifth on your love life, which is understandable. Do you feel like over your career, when you're writing a song, a love song, when you're in love and then you're writing a song where there's no love in your life, do you find it harder to write a love song when there's no love happening right now?
It depends, because for me too, like I'm also able to look at other people's like, lives and situations, people that I'm close with. And there's so many different forms of love. I find that you can find inspiration not only in romantic love, but platonic love, love as a like new parent. Like I have a friend, one of my best friends just had a daughter. And so, that's a brand new love. That's something that's blooming. It's the first time that she's experiencing love as a mother. So I find that sometimes it can be hard depending on what kind of love song that you do to get in that super, I'm happy and everything is fluttering if your love life is in shambles. But I think the cool thing is that you can find inspiration, not necessarily just from what you're experiencing, but from what other people are experiencing around you. So I have been able to tap into other people's experiences in that regard as well. But there have been times where I was like completely bummed out, and I'm like looking at all the songs I'm writing. I'm like, okay, you're sad. You're in a whole Alanis Morissette kind of mode, and you need to maybe sprinkle some other stuff in. So it depends. I try to now for this upcoming project, I'm trying to do a balance and have the whole project tell a story.
Very awesome. So the single All In is coming out on June 11th.
Yes.
Now, is this part of an album?
It's going to be part of an EP. So I'm hoping that this EP, I'm working earnestly. I'm hoping it'll be done by the fall so I can release it. I haven't decided yet how many songs are on it because I've been writing forever, and it's hard to like pick and choose between your babies, like which one really fits this project. So we'll see how many songs make the cut. But yeah, I'm hoping for this fall to release the full project.
Well, if you ever need actors in your music videos, some lovely couples in the background, you can call me.
Thank you.
Pair me up with a good-looking model. And
it's funny because I shot the music video, which I'm also going to release this Friday. And it all kind of came together again, like this whole process came together really organically. I wrote it, I started writing it last year and then kind of tuned stuff up at the top of this year. And I worked with my friend David Live, who's an incredible singer, songwriter, producer, talent. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's amazing. I worked with him on this project, and we kind of just were like sending stuff back and forth, which is interesting. And it was the first time that I did things that way, largely because of COVID. But it all kind of came together really organically. And then after we got the song done, I was like, oh, I have to shoot a music video. And I'm like trying to come up with a concept for the music video. And then one of my good friends, his name is Mathino Bay. He's been traveling a lot as a videographer. He just so happened to be in town. He's like, hey, Riz, I'm in town. I'm like, awesome. He's like, you want to shoot something? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, when are you free? And he's like, tomorrow. And I was just like, okay. So then I was scrambling trying to figure out what the concept was, and then ended up shooting the music video largely in my mom's garden, because it's about summer and spring, and she has flowers and it looks like a fairy garden. I'm like, this works. And yeah, and then a few other spots around the city, and it all came together like kind of sort of last minute, but I'm really happy with it. So,
and another reason why I just love your story, and I'm so glad that you're getting this single out, because you have the unfortunate experience of having your Instagram account compromised.
Yes.
I couldn't have happened at a worse time because you had a worse time coming out.
Yeah.
So how were you able to pivot and still just keep going, even though,
well, after crying a lot and wanting to punch the air a lot, I was like, okay, let me just, start another page. And I told a bunch of my friends what happened. So, they told some of their friends what was going on. And, I was able to slowly but surely start filtering people back over. And it's been interesting because I feel like I have a lot more engagement with these new people, a lot of which are not people that I even know. I've been posting more music stuff, so I feel like it's bringing like more music fans over. But they've been like really interacting with me a lot, and my following is slowly but surely coming back. So hopefully, the music will be out, people will like it, and it'll bring even more people over there. And I'm still holding on to a hope and a prayer that Instagram will restore it. I had my cousin reach out to a friend that actually works at Instagram, so knock on wood.
Fingers crossed. Good energy.
They'll be able to.
It's gonna happen. Good energy. So for right now, well, first give the website and all the platforms that people can find your music.
Okay, so my website is www.realkharisma.com. I'm going to have the song available there, and also the song will be available on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, Shazam, Deezer. I'm trying to remember everything, but what I'm going to do is on my website and then also on my social media, my new page at Instagram is The Real Kharisma. I'm going to have my link tree available so you can just click on one link and get to everything. Because I just feel like that's easier than sending people a million places. Just like click here, you can get to whatever platform is the platform that you would like to use and go from there.
And with your permission, we would love to post a snippet of your single All In on the Sun's website, only with your permission, just a snippet because we know we can't put up the whole thing.
Snippet's fine. Hopefully that'll, draw people in and they'll want to get the whole thing when it's ready on Friday. I'm super excited and nervous and excited and nervous and excited.
And in the meantime, while Instagram is working out what they're working out, if you can repost some of my personal favorite videos on your Instagram page, the video of you and your dad singing, I just love that.
Oh, thank you so much.
I love that so much. I'm like, I go to your page for the happiness. For my,
because that's literally been one of my goals just with my platform, whether it's music or the stuff that I'm doing with the sun or stuff that I'm doing like with TV. I just want to spread as much joy and positivity as I possibly can. Life gets really hard and really complicated. So I'm like, if more people could smile, I feel like we could kind of like level the playing field in terms of all of the other chaos that we don't necessarily have control over. So I just try to be like my friends and family, they tease me all the time. They're like, you are literally the epitome of like unicorn puppies, rainbows, flowers, and sunshine. And I'm like, thanks.
And before we go, we got to talk about that voice. You have I compared you earlier to Minnie Riperton when we began our discussion here. And you have a very, very, very high-pitched voice. I'm not sure how that's explained musically, but how high is your range?
It's hard to say on any given day, but I'm a first soprano, so I can get pretty high. And I've practiced my whistle register for years. So people like Mariah Carey and Minnie Riperton, first and foremost, because she was probably the first mainstream artist to really tap into the whistle register. I studied her for years. I'm still studying her because some of the stuff that she's able to do vocally is just bananas, and the same thing with Mariah Carey. And I trained classically on the piano and vocally since I was 10 or 11. So it's lots of scales and just, doing things to see if you can expand your register, and then also making sure that you're doing warm-ups and things like that. So you're protecting your voice and putting things in the right placement. The higher notes are what's called the head register. So you have to place notes in certain places to kind of get all the way up in the sky, as my dad likes to say.
Okay.
But making sure that you're hitting notes properly so that you're not damaging your voice or getting nodules and things has been something that I've been really focused on because I want to keep a healthy voice for as long as possible.
Absolutely. And that was my next question. When you have a voice such as yours, and literally in your case, your vocal box is your gift, can you eat what you want to eat? Like, what does it take to keep high notes? And like if you eat a cheeseburger, you can still go on stage and just.
Well, general rule of thumb is like on days of performance, you're not really supposed to do dairy. You're not supposed to do anything that has a lot of acid because it can impact, how you're able to hit notes. Depending on the day and like what songs I'm doing, I may or may not be super duper strict. But for the most part, like if I'm performing, I really do try to stay away from anything dairy because it just creates, like, I don't want to be gross, but you know what dairy does. So it can create like yucky stuff that doesn't allow for you to get your notes out. Also, things like humidifiers are really important just to keep everything like lubricated and open. Again, certain vocal exercises help keep things open. Spicy foods and stuff I don't do on like days of performance just because, like, again, it can affect what you're doing. So yeah, all of those things you kind of learn, and then most singers have routines. I'm a big tea drinker, so I always have like my tea with honey. I have like a whole arsenal, like a tea arsenal. And for years, I hate how it tastes, but it actually does wonders. It's this tea called throat coat tea that has licorice in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like how it tastes at all. It's gross, but it does have a very soothing effect when, you know, you're about to perform. And then also like not talking a lot on days where you're performing to kind of just preserve your voice.
Absolutely. Well, clearly you're not performing today because
no, I'm not. We're having a good old conversation. But no.
Well, Kharisma, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And one more time, please list the information where people can find your single, All In, which sounds lovely. I just love this song. And where people can find you.
Yes, my website again is www.realkharisma.com. My Instagram handle is The Real Kharisma, and Twitter is Real Kharisma. And all of the song will be available on all major streaming platforms on June the 11th, on Apple Music, iTunes, Tidal, Deezer, Spotify, Pandora, Shazam. I'm probably missing a few, but I'm going to post the link tree with all of the links. So you can just click on the link tree and get to everything.
Well, once again, Kharisma, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to Friday, June 11th. And you know we're going to pump you up here at the Sun. You already got a built-in fan base here. So
thank you. I'll make sure I share the link to the video too, because that'll be up on YouTube on Friday as well. So you can see how the vision all came together last minute.
Absolutely. And if you're listening, this is Sun News Live with Moni Jones, and we host a live news show any and every time we feel like it. So sometimes you'll see us every day of the week. Sometimes you might see us once a week. But trust and know that we're always keeping you in the know on what you should know, what's going on, not only in Philadelphia, but around the nation and around the world. Please visit us at phyllissun.com, where you can get all of our content. And you can also follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Philadelphia Sunday Sun, and on Twitter at Phyllis Sun News. I'm Moni Jones, and until next time with Sun News Live with Moni Jones, have a great day and an even better week.
Bye.
Bye.